be missing. And we are very excited to open this meeting with something new, probably something that everyone is thinking about, but is still kind of scared about, that is artificial intelligence. So we really felt that it's time to bring the elephant in the room to the table and actually, try to play a little with our elephant and talk about AI and how we can use it. So it is exciting for us to present our first AI-generated video to talk about our Vimosa. Something that we put a lot of emphasis on when we were creating this video was to also show how AI can provide diversity. So we have several avatars talking in different accents in English, obviously, but different colors, different faces, different approaches. So with that, I'm gonna share the screen so you can watch the video.
My name is Alexa, and this video has been created using artificial intelligence. Welcome to our bi-monthly TA Dissemination Community of Practice meeting for May 2023. Let's go through our Vimosa.
Hi, I am Matt. Let's go with the vision. TA Centers' dissemination efforts are effective and efficient. TA Centers support each other's dissemination efforts. We improve outcomes for children with disabilities by reaching the right audiences.
My name is Jackie, and I am sharing the mission of this community of practice: increased communication and collaboration related to dissemination between the Office of Special Education Programs and centers to feel comfortable exploring new technologies and methods of communication. Improved dissemination analytics of the centers engaged in this community to reach new levels. Increased understanding of the importance of supporting dissemination. Maximization of centers' resources.
Hey everyone, I am Jonathan. Let's take a look at the objectives of the Vimosa. Create synergies across home orgs. Decrease duplicative efforts. Amplify planned efforts aligning efforts to the audience. Gain knowledge, wisdom, and strategies from others doing similar work. Diversify and make more culturally appropriate considering different perspectives. Make communications more accessible. Increase collaborative efforts while building relationships. Improve evaluation efforts to improve understanding of the analytics, staff needs, and efficient strategies.
My name is Sally, and these are the strategies for the Vimosa. Use data to guide our decisions regarding dissemination. Understand who the audience is and what they are seeking, while forecasting what they may need. Invite subject matters experts to join us as needed. Share strategies and best practices, as well as dissemination challenges as group members. Recognize the tiers of stakeholders to know who we are trying to reach first and how can they turnkey the information to their stakeholders.
Hey guys, I am Kyle. Finally, the actions. Find a communication template that the members of this community can modify for their own use. Take one big challenge together. Create a guide with best practices for making communications more culturally appropriate and accessible. Share plain and inclusive language guidelines with each other for cross-pollination.
Thanks for joining us today. Welcome. Hope you enjoyed the meeting and we can all learn together from each other. Now, Eliana will explain you more about how this technology works. Go ahead, Eliana.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to come back. So we are excited to actually share this technology with you all. And today our icebreaker is inviting you to actually, share some thoughts about what you just saw. How do you feel about it? What do you think? We know that when we talk about AI, there's a lot of fear about like avatars or robots, taking over the world or replacing us. or so many things, right? So we would like to invite you to think about it. And if anyone would like to share, it will be great to hear your thoughts and ideas about it. Or you can use the chat too.
That felt very strange.
Right?
Yeah, it felt very impersonal, robotic, like the images and the voices and cadence and things, like the rhythm of the speech didn't feel like a person. I was uncomfortable the entire time.
Do you feel there's gonna come the time in which people are gonna feel like comfortable, like receiving information in this way?
I think the evolution of AI has the potential to soften those things that felt very robotic over time. And so the potential exists that down the road, probably sooner than we hope, that people may not even realize the difference.
Right.
That's
And-
a little
And that's actually
scary.
one of the biggest fears, right? To actually remove those limitations and get lost in reality and not being able to actually make the comment that you just made, like, okay, I can tell that is an avatar. But yeah, the next step is like, probably we are not able to take, to realize anymore that they are avatars. And how do we differentiate reality from actually a new reality that is AI?
So I have a question. They did not. What came first, the slide with the text on it, or them? Because they actually summarized some of them,
Exactly.
and which I thought was amazing, but I couldn't figure out what had come first.
Yeah.
And
What I did basically is that I did put, the words in writing in AI, and they came with their own like version of those words. So they basically rewrote the speech, making the speech more functional. Those are the things that we have captured throughout the meetings. Actually, our VMOSA is written in the same way in which you provided feedback. So what I did was trying to give them something so they can come back, with their own version and be more interactive, which is not perfect, but it is like cool to see, right? That they can think and they can reword, like the ideas in a way that AI considers much more interactive.
I keep going back to that article, that big article that was in the New York Times, probably a month or so, maybe more than that, about the guy that was interacting with AI, and the AI was trying to get him to leave his wife. And it was just like, so, and somebody put in the comment, it was just watching it was distracting from the content.
Yeah.
Which I agree, but part of that was this is new stuff. I mean, anyway.
Yes. Yeah, I do feel it is, the first impression too, like, is this real, like I'm looking at their mouth and they are moving their mouths, they somehow look real, right? And Mary is asking how long did it take to produce the presentation? And she wants to know more about cost benefit, time cost benefit. And actually, this is called Synthesia. It is a very affordable AI video producing software. It starts like $30 per month, and you can create up to 15 minutes. So we are going to be sharing all that information with you. There are much more advanced technologies that they are more expensive and they look much, much better. And Travis is asking if there's a way to personalize the avatar. Yes, there's a way, which is really scary because you can create an avatar of yourself. It takes a couple of months for the technology to create someone that looks just like you, talks like you, moves like you. And that is up to $10,000 per avatar. But it is really, how the future looks right now for those of us, well, I should not include me because I'm not scared of the cameras or talking in front of people, but for those of you that are actually, you know, scared about talking in front of people and thinking about the barriers when we think like, I don't want to do videos, I'm so scared about the camera. It could be actually a solution or maybe not, right? We don't have the answers today, but we just wanted to bring this conversation. And so we can keep thinking about it and we can keep, you know, like bringing more information so we can keep growing along with technology that again, so many times is scary and we decide to not to talk about it or say like, I'm not ready yet, but we have to get ready because the world is moving really fast. So with that, I'm gonna invite Rebecca.
Eliana, can I ask a quick question
Yes,
before
yes.
you move forward? So they developed the audio or like the script based on your initial document, but is there a way to then go back in and say, clean it up so that it does sound less
Yes.
robotic, more, and then would they like re-record, you know, and would they follow that script or do they always go off, you know, like to their own learning? Like, is there a way to kind of control it, I guess, in some respects?
Yes, there is a way to improve all that you are going to need to do manually with this software because it is, again, you know, a very inexpensive one. So you can go and actually fix the pronunciation, you can change the script, you can adjust so many things. And there are other ones that, again, you know, they are much more expensive and you can just press, you know, like a button and say like, clean it, change it, improve it, you know, make it more like friendly, talk like very professionally, surprise me. And it is really, really, you know, like interesting to see what they can do. But this one specifically is very, very affordable and like very, very low level of AI. And still, I think that we all got surprised, you know, by how advanced it is.
I have a question. So the audio and the video are two separate pieces?
No, they
So
come together. You provide the audio, and it was created in 2 steps because what I did is that I used ChatGPT. I put the actually text, the script in ChatGPT, and I asked ChatGPT, yes, go ahead and do something with this. So when I actually got that information generated for ChatGPT, I inserted that information in this software so they were able, you know, to use that information. And I didn't do it with all the text. Yes, so you can see the difference between when they are just reading a script and when they are using something that has been improved or upgraded by ChatGPT.
Could you have taken, here's the Mimosa stuff. Here it is. Here's a document. And say, now create a training out of it. Could they have?
Yes, you can do that. Yes.
Huh.
You can do that for sure. I mean, it is, and again, you know, it's such a good idea probably today after this meeting, if you haven't used it yet, it is a good idea to go and download ChatGPT and start playing with ChatGPT because we are really in this moment in the history of technology in which no one knows the capacity yet of AI. So I do feel that I get surprised like every single day about the new things that ChatGPT is doing, you know, and the new things that it's learning all the time.
This is Alex Lazara from UCTA Center. The video made me a little uncomfortable, even if I put aside some of the kind of body snatchers, Stepford vibe that the roboticness kind of gives off, that particularly it's kind of off-putting to me. But even if I put that aside, I'm very concerned about the idea that this is a tool that provides diversity because it doesn't. This is a tool for astroturfing and pretending that something is there that is not there. And that makes me deeply uncomfortable in terms of using it to sort of pretend that a human being exists. I think that's very scary to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are really interesting tools, and I have used ChatGPT a few times. The one thing that I think it's pretty good at is text reduction. And you can give it something that's overwritten and say, cut all the words out that don't need to be here. And you can get a look at a robot just butchering language left and right and deciding, hey, well, here's something that maybe you don't need. that's the best use that I've found for it. But I'm very reluctant to give up intentionality and to give up control over work.
Thank you so much for sharing. That is so important, to address those like ideas, and keep talking about them. So we knew that this was gonna take some extra time, but so I'm gonna let Rebecca do her part, and we promise you that we are gonna be creating one specific one to talk about AI.
During our prep work, I told the team, I said, if we start with that video, we are never going to get through our entire agenda. I think we could have an entire session on our excitement and concerns at the same time. I as well am reluctant and at the same time kind of fascinated by the technology that we're seeing play out. But we are going to switch gears to get going in our meeting. So I get the fun job of doing our summary and bringing us back into our conversation for today. So in our last meeting, we spoke about, we had a full agenda. That was the other thing we realized in our planning meeting recently was we had a packed agenda the last time. We flew through so much content. We talked about Reels and how you can utilize them to disseminate information and share stories through your center's work. Communication plans were shared, and we took a look at what goes into a solid communication plan. We talked about accessibility and specifically around plain language and making your communications accessible. And one of the follow-up requests that came through was more conversation around alt text. So we do have Alex here from ECTA who just commented on ChatGPT and the video. So I'm going to turn it over to Alex for about 5 minutes to kind of share some alternative text guidance, if that's okay. So Alex,
Thank you. Am I allowed to share my screen here? So I just kind of wanted to take a look at a couple examples of complicated things that I think that many of us probably run into when we're preparing detailed reports or things like that. So the first thing I wanted to mention was one of the examples that we looked at last week was the astronomy picture of the day from NASA, and had a very long, paragraph length florid description of the nebula. And I think for a page that is the astronomy picture of the day, that's probably a great tack. I mean, the reason to come to the page is to look at a picture. And so a lengthy description of a picture is actually pretty helpful. Sometimes I think it's very easy to overwrite descriptions and to create, to somebody who has to listen to a description, a kind of delay of game, where in this case, we would be looking at this briefing paper, we have this headline picture, but the picture is not the purpose of the article. The purpose of the article is to talk about infant and early childhood mental health. So a very simple, short, one-sentence text description to parents with an infant child under a blank is maybe all that you need. And I also want to think about, like, if you know that your sighted people will be referring to a picture perhaps, or identifying a location by a picture, really go for the keywords that someone would be using to talk about the picture in reference to finding something else. That's what's going to be most helpful for somebody who cannot see the picture and wants to use it to orient themselves to the content, the substantive content that somebody wants to look at. So I would just be careful when we are writing alt text that you don't have to do War and Peace when you're writing alt text. The other thing that I wanted to talk about just in terms of alt text is that the best thing for alt text is not to need it at all, and to package information sometimes in a way that you can bypass the need to write it at all. So for example, this is a hex map, and I'm going to talk real briefly about a wider accessibility issue. So why would anybody use a hex map as opposed to a more geographically designed map of the United States? And really the answer is accessibility, but it's also accessibility for sighted people. If the purpose of this map is to give you at a glance how much of the map is covered by purple, well, if Wyoming is this big and Rhode Island is this big, you have no ability to sort of gauge the number of states. that are actually fall into a particular category with your eyeballs. But if all the states are the same size, then you actually get that sort of map coverage by area, by state. One other way that this is nice is if we're looking on like a mobile phone screen and the phone is very narrow, this is still pretty legible, whereas Rhode Island would have completely disappeared into tiny 1-pixel town. Were we looking at it on a mobile phone, we would never be able to really tell the difference between Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, all those tiny states on the eastern seaboard. But if you couldn't see this map, or you struggle with the color or the contrast or something like that, then this whole section, including the legend and the map, if you're on a screen reader, it just skips it in this encoding because you don't need it. I gave you all the actual information just past that. Here are our data labels. I'm showing you the number that falls into each category is read aloud to you. So you get your category, you get essentially what someone would see at a glance. You go to the next header, you get the next category at a glance. And then if you wanted the details to see exactly what states are in which categories, that information is printed out. The problem with alt text is you would only ever get that as a singular paragraph. You would have to find a way to write a summary, and then somebody's actually missing the data that is visible to somebody else, and they don't have the information that someone else has. So it's sort of also about data completeness. So similarly here, we have this kind of example chart that shows developmental trajectories. And the chart lines are only examples. So in this case, it's okay if we kind of skip it. I did write some alt text that explains what the axes are labeled and that the summary statements are written out as example lines, but we have the definitions for the example lines. But since it's not real data, we don't have to really get into the nitty-gritty with that description. But down here, we have all these charts. So how do we make these charts accessible? Well, I've done a couple things. One is to choose 3 different colors for the lines. I've also chosen 3 different textures for the lines, right? One is solid, one is dashed, one is dotted. They are 3 different colors. I've cropped the amount of actual range of the chart to make it as big as possible and as readable as possible. But even if all that stuff you were missing, you have the data table down here. It's reprinted for you. So all the information that the chart actually displays is available in a simple, totally accessible, whether you can see and to what detail level you can see all that information is still provided to you. So I think be judicious with alt text, and whenever it's possible, where data is concerned, find a way where you don't actually need it. Can be a huge help.
Okay, any questions for Alex? Anything you want clarification on or need clarification on before we move on? Thank you for sharing. Very much appreciate your time and joining the conversation. Okay. All right, well, let's continue on with our agenda for today. Just a quick reminder to make sure that you are able to jump into Engage OSEP, make sure you are logged in, make sure you can find what you are looking for. If you are having difficulties, reach out to Shoshana. She'll be happy to help you out and get you into the Engage OSEP, our dissemination CoP section. For example, any materials from today, as well as the review slide deck will be uploaded there. Quick question for you. Go ahead and put it in chat. Have you changed anything about your communication efforts so far? We have covered a lot this year in regards to social media and accessibility, communication plans and reels and chat GPT, AI. We've covered a lot of ground so far this year. So as we're going through, think about what have you changed about your communication so far, and feel free to drop that in the chat. And then additionally, Jennifer wanted us to do a shout out that coming up on May 18th is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. There is a website where you can learn more. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody. And then getting to our purpose for today. So sticking with our Vimosa that our lovely AI video explained at the beginning of today's session, we are going to talk about our target audiences today. We are looking at how are we reaching and determining, well, first, how are we determining our target audience? And then from there, making sure our content not only meets their needs, but is also culturally responsive. So these two particular items are the focus of our conversation today, based on requests that we received in our monthly Padlet and our bulletin board. So if there are no other questions, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Eliana to get us started on our first activity.
Hey. So we are excited today to bring a problem of practice. And we would like to ask you, so you can discuss these important questions, which or what strategies have you used to reach principals, general education teachers, general education district folks with your content focus on students with disabilities? So what we are gonna do now is that we are gonna open the breakout rooms. You're gonna have the ability to choose which one goes better with you and with what you do. So I'm gonna also share the Padlet so you can see which are the options that we have. You give me 1 second.
I got it for you. It's in the chat.
Great. Okay, so anyways, I'm gonna try to show this on the screen so you can see it in here. So this is what we have for today. So you're gonna be having the option to join the SEA and lead agencies breakout room, LEA and early childhood, families and caregivers, institutes of higher education, and others. So again, this is based on your audience. We want to be sure that you are working with people that are serving the same audience, so you can gain some strategies and you can discuss these 3 questions that we have for you. Who are you primarily trying to reach and why? Is your audience represented by the language you use, the images, the concepts, and how do you know? Who else views your communications before they go out? And what is the process, and does it include representation? So it is actually like 3 very complex questions. So you have 15 minutes to discuss and to share some information. And after that, we are gonna be bringing you back to the main room. So each person, someone from each group can actually share what they have learned and what they have discussed. So Shoshana, can you please go ahead and open the breakout?
I talked about our face and then we all disappeared. How ironic was that? Out of our breakout room.
Those are the scary things that happen.
Perfect timing, even if you didn't know it.
So welcome everyone. So now we are gonna have 10 minutes to talk about, to share actually your discussions with the other groups. So anyone would like to start sharing what you discuss inside the breakout room? Or if you would like to use the chat.
I can share a little bit just from the SEA group. I mean, we talked a lot about listserv. We talked a lot about how do we reach our targeted audiences, and because our audiences are so specific, and there's often a lot of opportunity and need to go bi-directional, that listservs have been super helpful, even though it's old technology and, you know, that people find them really useful. That's how people get a lot of good information. And it's also coming from a trusted source. So then folks feel comfortable asking questions back or sharing resources or asking things that they wouldn't necessarily want to share with the general public.
Thank you, Michelle. Sure. Anyone else from one of the other groups?
Well, this is Nora. I was with wonderful folks from the Deafblind Project, and we talked about so our audience as families and youth who experience disabilities and how we reach them. The bi-directional piece as a TA center is a tougher place to get it coming from the families, because as a TA center, and that's where I'm coming from, my customer is the parent centers who deal with the family. So if the family contacted me, I direct them to a parent center. Same with the Deaf Blind Project. They have their state deaf blind centers. But we talked about language access and representation of, in our materials. Do we, we touched a little bit on as materials are being developed to go out, as messaging is going out, if it's got to be fast and it's got to go, out in it, we have less of a good process in place to check for representation or messaging and such, as opposed to if we're creating a more formal document or a more formal training. Yes, we have the things in place at that point. And we are very conscious now of the pictures that we use are more representational of a wide variety of families. So that's what we were talking about.
So I'm gonna read some of the comments in here. Kate is saying some of us had very specific audiences, others had multi-layer audiences, right? And I think this is a very interesting comment, because yes, when your audience is very specific, sometimes it is hard. I think, we struggle to create inclusive information that can be understood and used by other audiences. So that's also a big challenge. And Alexander, to Michelle's comment, is saying listservs, sometimes the old ways are best. And it is true, when we think about technology and how everything is changing, it's not about like deleting what works, but instead trying to incorporate new technologies so we can keep maximizing our efforts and ensuring that we do have representation, that we have accessibility, that we have inclusive strategies, and that we have like new ideas that they are gonna make our products culturally responsive. And with that, talking about being culturally responsive, I would like to invite our next guest and part of this team, Amy Peterson. She's going to be talking about a wonderful initiative from the Progress Center that is the use of a telenovela. I get so excited about it because I'm Latina, so I did grow up actually watching telenovelas. So I personally love this idea, and I do feel that it's like super culturally responsive for the Latino community. So Amy is going to be talking more about it. Welcome, Amy.
All right. I'm just making sure I share the right screen. So I'll do it this way and I won't be able to see you guys.
That's everyone's challenge. So take your time.
Did I get that? Are we sharing now?
No, it's not. Yeah, no.
All right. All right. Well, so as Ileana mentioned, we were talking about kind of unique ways to reach our audiences. And in reality, when I'll share a little bit about this effort and this project, we as the center, the Progress Center, did not come up with this unique way to share and reach our audiences, but we were trying to elevate an example from the field of how they were doing that. So we were not the creative geniuses behind this and in the strategy that they were using. So wanted to make sure I clarified that from the start. One of the things that I also wanted to just bring forward was a resource that back a while ago, through some of the work that I was doing for the National Center for Systemic Improvement in collaboration with the Cedar Center, we were hosting a kind of community of practice affinity group around communications with states. And this slide really stood out to me in the conversations that we were having about defining our audiences, is like this idea of like hoping for the best, targeting someone, or connecting with the core. And I think it's oftentimes, right, we send things out, we hope for the best, right? We, might not customize it to the specific audiences. Sometimes we do, we target something, we target some of our audiences, we think about their needs, but we do it kind of on a larger level. And in some of the conversations we were just having, it's like, how do you get to know the specific context, the specific needs of some of those different audiences? And so thinking about this connecting with the core. And I think this example, of the work that we were highlighting really helped us to think about like a way that they were really intentionally thinking about a specific audience of parents in their district and how they could better reach them and meet their needs. So I liked this visual and graphic and idea, and so I just wanted to share it with you all if that was something that was helpful in thinking about this. So to give you a little bit of context for the Progress Center, our focus is really on developing and implementing high quality educational programming for students with disabilities, and our target audiences are really teachers and local leaders. But we know that parents and families are a critical player in that space. And so we have been doing some work with our partners at the parent centers and others to really reach the parent voice. But in this work that I'm going to talk about, this example, this telenovela example, it was really around how do we support, or how are districts engaging with parents and families. So I wanted to highlight that. To give you a little about the background for the work that we were talking about and bringing forward are these stories from the classroom videos. And the intention for these videos were just short videos from educators, from leaders, from young adults with disabilities, from parents, to really highlight some examples, some stories, some experiences that we could use within our work, in our conversations, as well as to help folks at the local level think about having those conversations themselves. So in companion with some of these materials, we developed some quick guides for reflection and discussion, and then some longer discussion guides for some of the videos that are modeled after some of the IDA partnership dialogue guides to really help people kind of break down and have some conversations, with the videos kind of being the sparking conversation. Back, if you guys were familiar with the dialogue guides, oftentimes that was an article as some of those sparking conversations. So this was just another way to kind of think about the utility and use of these videos. But we've also used them in different trainings and supports and presentations to really hit home some of the key messages and bring forward some key experiences from young adults with disabilities, from other educators and leaders, and so on. So specifically, this one that I was asked to talk about is this idea of using a telenovela to explain the special education process. So some of the folks that we had a relationship with in Arlington Public Schools, one of my colleagues had previously worked there and had a connection with them. And we found this work that they were doing around really using this strategy of using a telenovela to explain and tell the story about special education, understanding and breaking down the special education process, and so on. And so they have developed a series of videos that really go through that and have those different episodes that you can take and look at and explain. But what we were trying to do for our audiences, right, our primary audiences are the educators and leaders, is really to illustrate the way of how they were engaging at the district level with parent leaders and other folks in the community in order to develop the telenovela. So the stories from the classroom video that we developed is an interview between Kathleen Donovan, who is the Parent Resource Center Coordinator for Arlington Public Schools, and Gina Argati, who is a parent in Arlington Public Schools and a parent leader. And she's one of the stars of the video, so you can see her up there. And I'll show you a clip of the video in just one of the videos in just a second, so you can see a little bit more context. But so it is an experience, or just an interview of them talking about the experiences of developing the telenovela. What were they thinking about in identifying the key messages? What was really important to hit home? Why did they come to this idea of a telenovela to tell the story, and so on? And so that's really the intention of our stories from the classroom video from the Progress Center, and to illustrate kind of a creative way that they were really thinking about doing this work and the power of engaging families in the process. On the flip side, it was Arlington's goal, right, to really support the engagement of families in special education, particularly their Spanish-speaking families, to share information and encourage advocacy and really break down the process and dispel some of the myths and mistakes and challenges that we often face in that. So they developed 5 different episodes that are each about 10 to 15 minutes long that go through different parts of the process and the experience. They had local parents and community members in different roles as the actors. They co-developed scripts. They developed focus groups that really led them to design the scripts and adjust the information. They were telling a story, and some of the interview part about, they embedded in grandparents into the story after the fact, because some of the folks in the community were like, we really need to have the grandparents as part of the story. And so they adapted things over time based on the feedback of their audiences. In addition, they've developed a bunch of companion resources that they've used in order to do trainings with these materials for parents and families, as well as for educators in their system now, to help them understand what does this experience look like for the families that are part of the work. So that's a little bit about that. And I just wanted to give you a short sense of kind of what their video actually looks like, because it's much more interesting and engaging than ours. I'm going to jump ahead just a little bit so you can see the start of the process.
¿Qué es esto? ¿Estudio del niño? ¿Una reunión? ¿Hay algún problema con mi hijo? Oh, es hora de recoger a los niños de la escuela. Tal vez Karina sepa algo de esta carta. Hey, Karina. ¿Cómo estás, amiga? Qué bueno que te veo. Tengo una pregunta. ¿Está bien? ¿Luces preocupada? Sí, sabes, estoy preocupada. Hoy recibí esta carta de la escuela. Es sobre mi hijo y no sé de qué se trata. No sé si hay algo malo.
Recibí la misma carta cuando refirieron a mi hijo para recibir educación especial.
¿Educación especial? ¿Hay algo malo con mi hijo?
No, no te preocupes. Eso quiere decir que la escuela quiere hablar contigo. Algo debe estar sucediendo con el niño. Ven, vamos donde Jackie. Ella debe saber lo que está pasando.
Gracias, amiga.
Vamos.
And then the one last thing that I just wanted to talk a little bit about was kind of how we are sharing the stories from the classroom video. And I didn't know at the time, so it's something I learned in the community of practice was that we developed a reel. I thought we just developed a short video clip to put on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram and those videos, but I guess it was a reel. So we did that to help with engagement in some of our social media spaces. We shared with some of our partners who we knew were doing work on similar topics. For example, the National Center for Systemic Improvement had just recently done a thought leader conversation really around this space and wanted to highlight it through them. And then we're also inviting Gina, Kathleen, and other members of their team to spend a little bit more time presenting and highlighting this experience through an event that we're having in August, a virtual kind of conference event to dig a little bit deeper and talk about kind of what it really take for them to develop it. One of the things that we noticed when we were doing the work was that, and the video that we had of just the interview with them was that we could have a 20, 30, 40-minute video conversation of just their interview. And we knew that wasn't probably the most effective form of communication for that work, but we really wanted another way to really extend that experience and highlight that. So that's another piece that we'll have coming forward to really share about that that in a deeper way, and help people think about kind of how they could use similar strategies in their context. And then as I mentioned before, it's something that we're embedding in a lot of our trainings and presentations and materials as we go forward to help us think about kind of sharing parts of this work and strategies as we move forward. So I think that is everything from me. Happy to answer any questions.
I was like, hopefully she's not gonna play pause at this moment when I wanna know what happened, you know, when they were going to the.
They're going, it's a hook. Now you have to go and watch all the different
How
episodes.
exciting it was to me, you know, like the music, the drama, you know, that's really, you know, so culturally responsive, because honestly, that's how we live, you know, like every experience as immigrants in the country, like, oh my God, what's that letter? What that means? What's that acronym? So yes, you know, that comment, because it's really good. Thanks. Thanks so much, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. We'll pause here real quick. Are there any questions? Feel free to unmic or place questions or thoughts in the chat on Amy's sharing out. I personally love this idea. I think we're going to try to snag it somehow. So thank you so much.
How did you produce that?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I was thinking this.
Oh, so the video that Arlington did, they did it with their local TV, Arlington Education TV channel. So the real nice looking videos. Ours was just a video interview. So it is, if you watch that part, it's not nearly as beautiful and technical and as intense. But yeah, so they partnered with their local education TV channel in order to produce the video.
And Travis is asking in the chat, Amy, were AV students included in the production?
I don't know the answer to that. I can definitely ask. I know, for example, so a different example on a different project that we worked with for NCII is we created a video with the Wyoming Department of Education and some local districts on their implementation of DBI. And that was actually developed and produced by the local students in the AV program at the high school. They did all the video editing of it. They did all the videoing with support, of course, from their teacher, but that was really cool experience as well. And they provided an awesome product. So that's another great strategy, and is engaging with local students as well.
Any other questions or follow-up key takeaways anybody would like to share? Okay. With that, we are going to now turn it over to Peggy Malloy. Peggy joins us from the National Center on Deaf Blindness for some problem solving around reaching a target audience of providers and families. So Peggy, feel free to unmic, and I believe, yep, you have sharing access. Thank you.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. Yes, I do work for the National Center on Deaf Blindness, and my colleague Shelby Morgan is also part of this group and here today. And what we have is a couple of questions for you all. I want to give you a little bit of background first, but in general, we're looking for any suggestions or insights you might have about how we can reach more families and educators to let them know about resources on our website. And I'd originally posted a similar question on this topic on the Engage OSEP site. And so Jennifer had reached out to me and asked if I'd also like to ask everyone in person. But our overall sort of organization as a project is that our primary TA recipients are state deafblind projects. And there's either a single project or a multi-state project that covers every state, Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, and Pacific Islands, and DC. And so we kind of form a network together. We provide them with TA. We also work on important things together. But they're the ones, we provide TA to help them do the work that they do. But then they in turn provide TA to families and educators and other service providers in their states. And so that's kind of an oversimplification, but that's the gist of it. We also provide TA and partner with some national organizations that are specifically about families, like the National Family Association for Deafblind. And then we work with other relevant other organizations, national organizations, on different partnership activities that are relevant to some of our initiatives. So the point of me saying that all is that basically we have very little direct contact with the end users of either families or educators or other service providers in states. We work through all these other organizations. At the same time, we do have a website that we kind of are the keepers of the website on deafblindness in kids and best practices. And so we want to get information that's on our site out to families and educators. And this relates a little bit to what we were talking about in the groups with bidirectional communication, is that they can find us, and we, have information on our website. We use Facebook, we use Twitter, and we hope they find us. But most of our dissemination is through intermediaries, the various partners that we work with. So we want to be able to find families and also let them know of all the stuff we have that can help them. So I just want to show a couple things on our website. So let's see. Oops. There we go. No, it's not it. There we go. So for example, we have a lot of information topics on a variety of important practices for kids who are deafblind. And there's a page that's set up like this for each topic. And the topics themselves are arranged into categories, like these ones you see here: foundations of learning, assessment, etc. And we have our own information in here, but we also link to information produced by others in the field. And going back in time, there's been a lot of great information that has been produced with OSEP funding and through higher education. So anyway, we try to be the place that kind of keeps track of all that and organizes it in a way that's useful for people. And so we really, our goal is to reach really every single person who has a deafblind child in their life, and could benefit from this information. So going back to my little presentation here. So as I mentioned, in terms of current strategies, they're kind of the typical. We have website, we have Facebook, Twitter, and then we do a lot of providing social media announcements to state deafblind projects and other partners. So my question, to open it up to all of you, questions, is what other strategies could we use to reach families and educators that we can't contact directly? And do any of you use intermediaries like we do for our dissemination? If so, how do you do it? And is it effective? And for that second question, we're trying to figure out how we can do this better. So would love any insights that you all have. So with that, I will just open it up to the group.
So Peggy, this is Nora Thompson. Maybe it's the state deafblind projects that would do this, but I'm wondering if you guys have the connections with the diagnosticians, like the medical centers and the American Academy of Pediatrics, and all of the where the diagnoses are happening. Mm-hmm. And then, the early intervention, actual on the ground early intervention providers that are seeing stuff. Yeah, again, we don't have direct contacts to those local people. We do work with national organizations like EDI and Hands and Voices. In those situations, though, it is typically we work with them to help their local chapters connect with their state deafblind projects. Because our role is to help the state deafblind projects, to assist them and not to intervene in their states and, be the ones providing anything in their states. But so they would be like, for California, it would be like, the California Deafblind Project would be the one to have the connections with, say, UCSF, Children's Center and that stuff. Okay, because that's, that's a place where when the diagnosis is, when they're going through all the testing and stuff that. Yeah.
But maybe we could, that would be a way we could do more targeted stuff with states. We could say who are the key, places where you're hearing from, that kids are deafblind, and could you share this information with them? So
Or not hearing from, I mean, the whole thing with it's about it. We all know it's about relationships. So if all of a sudden you're not getting referrals from an area, do you need to circle back because there's been a change in staffing that the institutional memory no longer remains?
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else?
I do feel that many times we forget how important it is to have an intentional general outreach. Sometimes we do feel that our audience is the only one that cares, or should get the information. And instead, I feel that, especially when you talk about social media, keep bringing information all the time about what you do, where to find information, how you can help, like creating this very conversational communication is very helpful, because even though if we don't work directly with children who are blind, we know that you exist. We know how to refer people to you. We know how to pass the information. So I think that is very, very good. For example, from NCSI, I can tell you that for the awareness days, we go and look for you and your resources. For you, you are, in our files as the leader that is going to provide the right information, right? So I do feel that working constantly on providing this information without feeling that we are repeating and repeating over and over again. And sometimes we do feel that we are trying to sell something, but instead is creating that continuous awareness, because as Nora just said, sometimes people change, there's new staff, there's new people, and we get disconnected. So I think that's also important. Now, listening to your information, I learned something new. So I think it's always.
So Eliana, are you referring to specifically like sharing with the other national centers, or
with everyone, basically, having that information available in formats that they are friendly, that they are easy to use and digest, consume, so everyone can help you, so you can grow that collaboration in which people really understand what you do at all times, and they really interact with you. And I think that general awareness, having that intentional approach inside your marketing strategy is so important. Because again, sometimes we get too focused in our target and we forget, that we all can benefit from the information and can become allies.
Okay.
Peggy, we do quite a bit of dissemination through intermediaries. I work for Cadre, and so our target audience isn't specifically families and educators. We've done a lot of work developing resources for families in different languages and in parent-friendly language. And one of the strategies that we've also used is in creating the materials, allowing them to be customized. And so in formats that somebody can take it and make it their own, so that a state that has some specific content that they want to come across, they can include that, but the basic content that we provide is readily available. And it really seems to help with capacity issues for parent centers and SEAs to have something that's pretty much done for them. They can just tweak it to meet their needs a little bit more. And they seem to be very willing to then disseminate those materials.
Kelly, is it okay if we reach out to you to get more details, like especially like how you do that from a design perspective? I'd love to know more. Okay.
Yeah.
Righty. Okay. Any of those? Well, thank you. I did put my email, pmalloy@helenkeller.org down there. So if you wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant idea, just send it my way. And thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
I think I'm up next, right, Eliana?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you've heard a lot of really interesting dissemination efforts today. I thought it was really exciting to see the variety of ways that people are being creative, from AI all the way to Telenova. And so as you're preparing for our next meeting, we ask you to think about one dissemination effort from another center or even from OSEP that you would want to share with your communication folks. And then be prepared to see how that conversation went if you're deciding to take on a new dissemination effort, and be sharing that at our next call. And then the next topic we're going to get into a little bit more is analytics to demonstrate your reach. We're always thinking about that piece, as well as what is your dream way to use AI. It sounds like a lot of people are not dreaming about AI. They're having nightmares about AI instead of dreaming about it. So, but maybe there's a positive in all the AI. I mean, maybe it's cost effective in a way that isn't in other ways of using it. So those are some ideas to prepare yourself for our next discussion. Did I leave anything out, Eliana or Rebecca?
No, that's it for today. So actually, thank you so much, everyone. We are giving you 10 minutes back of your time so you can have a coffee, have a walk. So thank you so much for joining us today. So we are going to see you in 2 months, and hopefully you're going to have good dreams about AI and not nightmares.
Yes.
Have a great week.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.